When the Industrial Revolution started, coal, gas, and oil were key factors in its prosperity and huge drivers to the technological and economic development which has followed. Even today, fossil energy is still a crucial element in the world economy and politics. However, this type of energy comes at the price of serious health and environmental impacts. The combustion of coal, gas, and oil generates large quantities of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, which contribute to climate change and air pollution. Global fossil fuel consumption evolved rapidly in the last 2 centuries. The rise of fossil energy began with industrial revolution, where coal was the favorite source of energy. Around 1920, oil and gas began to compete with coal. In the last half century, global fossil fuel consumption was around eightfold since 1950. Today, we rely on a combination of coal, oil, and gas for energy, transport, and other key sectors. While coal consumption is regressing in many parts of the world, both oil and gas are still highly on demand. The following chart illustrates how much energy was consumed globally for every country in 2019. Primary energy stands for energy that's harvested directly from natural resources, which includes fossil, nuclear, waste, and hydro energy. The biggest part of primary energy comes from fossil energy. China and the United States of America were by far the largest consumers of energy, with a total of energy consumption of 39,361 and 26,291 terawatt hours, respectively. At third place comes India with a total consumption of 9,461 terawatt hours, followed by Russia, which consumed 8,279 terawatt hours. Saudi Arabia, France, Canada, Iran, and Brazil are also big consumers of energy with more than 3,003 terawatt hours. Energy consumption per country depends on many factors, mainly total population, economy, energy efficiency, and lifestyles. The biggest consumers of energy, which are China and the USA, rely mostly on fossil energy. China relies on coal to produce 57% of its energy, oil to produce 28%, and gas to produce 6.8% of its total energy. While in the USA, oil and gas are more used than coal. Oil and gas constitute 73% of total energy, while coal contributes to only 11%. India, the UK, and South Africa rely also mostly on fossil energy. However, some countries like Brazil, Canada, Sweden, and France manage to integrate successfully renewable and nuclear energy. They can contribute to more than half of total energy, like the example of Sweden. One of the reasons why we still depend so much on fossil energy is because it is a very lucrative business. Oil and gas companies are among the richest in the world, if not the richest, which makes sense given the need for energy in many key sectors worldwide. Ford Global 2000 reported a list of revenue of top fossil energy companies in 2020. PetroChina and Sinopec were at the top of the list with respectively 280.7 and $271.1 billion of revenue. Saudi Aramco was at third position with a revenue estimated at $229.7 billion. These revenues depend mostly on crude oil price in the world market. In fact, most of the companies generated even more revenue before the pandemic. Fossil energy comes at the price of greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide. Global emissions from burning oil, coal, and gas have evolved exponentially through time. The chart illustrates carbon dioxide emissions through the years generated from coal, gas, oil, flaring, and cement production. Global emissions have soared between 1900 and 2020 and evolved from less than 5 billion tons to more than 35 billion tons of carbon dioxide. The period between early industrialization and until 1950 was dominated by the use of coal. Today, Carbon dioxide emissions are spread fairly equally between coal, oil, and gas. Flaring and cement production contribute much less compared to fossil fuels. It is important to note that fossil fuel resources and reserves are not unlimited and eventually will run out. Concerns of exhaustion of fossil resources have been long common in the petroleum industry. If we consider how much reserves of fuel we have and the rate of production we are having actually, it is possible to estimate how much years we have until we run out of fossil energy. By dividing the quantity of known reserves by the current rate of production and using data of 2015, it is estimated that we have a remaining 114 years of coal and only around 50 years of oil and gas. These predictions can change with time depending on more reserves discovery, extraction capacity, and consumption tendencies. But still, we'll eventually someday run out of fossil energy. The good news is that we will get rid of major emitter of greenhouse gases, but we hope that by then we will be able to rely 100% on renewable energy and environment-friendly energy types.